It was February 11th, 1990. The world held its breath. A tall, calm man walked out of Victor Verster prison. His name was Nelson Mandela. He had been locked away for 27 years, longer than most people stay married. They tried to break him, but they couldn't. They took his home, his freedom, even his chance to bury his son. But when he came out, he didn't want revenge. He wanted peace. How does a man go from enemy of the state to president of the country that imprisoned him? How did one man stop a civil war with just his voice? This is the real, raw, unbelievable story of Nelson Mandela. From chains to cheers. From cell to president. Subscribe now to at MysteryPlaybacksSeries. June 12, 1964. 3 p.m. Pretoria, South Africa, Palace of Justice. A judge bangs his gavel. The room is dead silent. 12 men stand in front of him, dressed in suits but with chains on their hands. One of them stands taller than the rest. Not just in height, but in strength. His name? Nelson Mandela. The judge's voice is cold. You are sentenced to life in prison for sabotage. The room gasps. Why did they jail a lawyer who only wanted fairness? How did this man become enemy number one in his own country? And how would this moment spark the greatest freedom story ever told? South Africa in the 1940s was a dangerous place if you were black. Laws were made by a white minority. These laws weren't just unfair, they were cruel. They said, black people can't vote. Black people can't live near white people. Black people can't go to the same schools or hospitals. This system had a name, Apartheid. It means apartness. It was legal racism. And it controlled everything. Nelson Mandela was born in 1918 in a small village called Mvetso. His birth name was Rolihlala, meaning troublemaker. His father was a chief. But when his father died, Mandela was adopted by another chief, Chief Jong Intaba. This gave him a chance to learn. He went to school. He learned about justice. And he realized, my people are not free. In the 1940s, Mandela moved to Johannesburg. He studied law. He became one of the first black lawyers in the country. He opened a law firm with his friend, Oliver Tambo. But it wasn't safe. Police watched their office. Phones were tapped. Clients were beaten. Mandela had a choice. Stay silent and live safely. Or speak out and risk everything. He chose to fight. Mandela joined the African National Congress, ANC. At first, they protested peacefully. Marches. Petitions. Boycotts. But the government didn't care. They crushed protests with bullets and jail. Then in 1960, everything changed. In a town called Sharpeville, police opened fire on a peaceful protest. 69 people died. That was the breaking point. Mandela went underground. He helped form a secret military wing, Umkhonto we Sizwe, Spear of the Nation. He said, violence is the only language the government understands. By 1961, Mandela was called the Black Pimpernel. He wore disguises, moved at night, met with rebels, even traveled to Algeria, Ethiopia, and Ghana to learn guerrilla tactics. The government feared him. The world was watching. The CIA even tipped off South Africa about his location. In August 1962, Mandela was captured. He was charged with leaving the country illegally and inciting strikes. Later, during the Rivonia trial, more charges followed. Sabotage. Plotting revolution. In court, he didn't beg. He didn't hide. Instead, he gave a speech that shook the world. In a quiet courtroom, Mandela stood up and said, I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." No one breathed. Then came the sentence. Life in prison. They sent Mandela to Robben Island, a cold, rocky island prison off Cape Town. His cell was tiny. No bed. No toilet. Just stone walls. He worked in a limestone quarry for 13 years. Blisters. Blood. Dust in his lungs. He was only allowed one visitor every 6 months. But Mandela never broke. He studied. He read. He taught other inmates. And he waited. Waited for a chance to return. This is just the beginning. Nelson Mandela would suffer more than most people ever will. But what he did next changed the world. Subscribe now to @MysteryPlaybacksSeries. The story of forgiveness, fire, and a freedom nobody saw coming. Robben Island was cold. The food was bad. The guards were cruel. Mandela woke up every morning to the same routine. Hard labor. Cracked hands. Letters from family, often censored or delayed. But he never stopped learning. He read books. He taught younger prisoners. He studied law and politics through a distance course with the University of London. Mandela believed, even in jail, we can prepare to lead. Outside the walls, the world started changing. People began asking, why is this man still in prison? By the late 1970s, word of Mandela's struggle spread far beyond South Africa. In London, people marched with signs that read "Free Mandela." In New York, musicians sang protest songs about apartheid. In Nigeria, students renamed their university dorms Mandela Hall. The United Nations condemned apartheid. The South African government was feeling the pressure. But they refused to let go. To them, Mandela was still a terrorist. But to the world, he had become something greater. A symbol of hope. In 1982, Mandela was moved to Pollsmoor prison on the mainland. It was still prison, but slightly better. Then, in 1985, the president of South Africa made an offer. If Mandela renounces violence, we will release him. Mandela replied from his prison cell, "What freedom am I being offered, if I must still live under white rule? Only free men can negotiate." He refused the deal. This stunned the world. Even after 21 years in prison, Mandela wouldn't sell his beliefs. He stayed strong. In 1988, Mandela got sick. He was moved to a private house at Victor Verster prison for treatment. But it wasn't just about health. The government was planning and afraid. They knew apartheid couldn't last forever. Riots were happening. Sanctions were hurting the economy. The world had turned its back on South Africa. So, secret talks began. Mandela was still a prisoner. But behind closed doors, he sat across from government officials. No handcuffs. No shouting. Just quiet negotiations. Could the man they jailed for life now be the key to saving the country? February 11th, 1990. It was a Sunday. Crowds gathered outside Victor Verster prison. News cameras were everywhere. Helicopters flew overhead. People sang freedom songs. Then, at 4:14 p.m., the prison gates opened. Nelson Mandela stepped out. Holding his wife Winnie's hand, he walked slowly, tall, proud. Smiling. After 27 years, Mandela was finally free. The world exploded with joy. Tears. Cheers. Songs. That evening, Mandela stood on a balcony in Cape Town. He faced tens of thousands of people. He said, "I stand here before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I am now free, but the struggle is not over." The message was clear. He forgave. But he had not forgotten. Mandela didn't rush into revenge. He didn't call for war. Instead, he pushed for peace. He worked with South Africa's President, F.W. de Klerk, to end apartheid laws. They released political prisoners, unbanned groups like the ANC, started drafting a new constitution. In 1993, both men won the Nobel Peace Prize. The world couldn't believe it. A former prisoner and the man who jailed him, standing side by side. In April 1994, for the first time, all races could vote in South Africa. Lines stretched for miles. Old women, young students, men with crutches. They waited hours just to cast a vote. One vote meant, I exist. I count. I am free. And when the votes were counted, Nelson Mandela won. By a landslide. He became the first black president of South Africa. On May 10, 1994, Mandela stood at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. He raised his right hand and took the oath. The same place that once sentenced him to life in prison now echoed with cheers and claps. He said, "Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will experience the oppression of one by another. White people, black people, Indian people, colored people, all stood together, for the first time, as one nation." From a cell to the presidency, Mandela's journey is unlike any other. But his fight wasn't over after the election. The truth behind Mandela's heartbreak, the deep scars of apartheid, and how he chose forgiveness over revenge. Subscribe now to @MysteryPlaybacksSeries. The battle for peace has just begun. The guards thought they had won. Mandela was locked away, far from cameras, far from crowds. No one could see him. But inside, he was still fighting. He spent his days crushing limestone. The dust burned his eyes. His knees cracked with each swing of the hammer. His skin grew thin. His lungs got weak. But his mind? Sharper than ever. Every night, he studied. Law books. History books. Letters from people around the world. He read about Gandhi. About Martin Luther King. And slowly, he planned something no one believed was possible. Not revenge. Not war. But peace. Winnie stood strong. She marched. She shouted. She kept Mandela's name alive. But it cost her. She was beaten, jailed, exiled. The government tried to crush her too. But she wouldn't stop. Because Mandela's fight was also her fight. They had taken her husband, but not her voice. The world was changing. Young people were angry. Police opened fire. Blood stained the streets of Soweto. Mandela heard the news. Inside his cell, his hands shook. He wasn't just a prisoner now. He had become a symbol. A face for the pain. A hope for the future. The pressure was growing. Other countries started to care. Boycotts. Sanctions. Isolation. The South African government was scared. One day, President Botha made a move. He said, if Mandela gives up the struggle, we will set him free. Mandela's answer? He wrote it in a letter. One line? Only free men can negotiate. Prisoners cannot enter into contracts. He refused to trade his soul for sunlight. 27 years. That's how long he stayed locked up. He missed his mother's funeral. He missed his son's funeral. He lost his youth, his health, his family. But he didn't lose his dream. He dreamed of a South Africa where every child could go to school, where black and white could vote, where leaders didn't need guns, only truth. This is the real story they didn't want told. A man they called a terrorist, who became a peacemaker. Subscribe now to MysteryPlaybacksSeries. The next chapter will leave you breathless. A small crowd waits outside. Journalists, protesters, police. And then, the gates open. A tall, grey-haired man steps out. His back is straight. His head is high. It's Nelson Mandela. The world watches in shock. People cheer. Some cry. He holds Winnie's hand. He walks like a man who was never broken. Because he wasn't. After 27 years in prison, he is free. From New York to Lagos. From London to Johannesburg. Every station says the same thing. Mandela is out. But freedom wasn't the end. It was just the start. He speaks to huge crowds. He doesn't call for war. He doesn't scream for revenge. He says, "Let us build a nation together. White people are scared. Black people are angry. But Mandela says, we are one." Behind closed doors, Mandela and de Klerk talk. For hours. For weeks. They argue. They compromise. They shake hands. Together, they begin to end apartheid, the system that tore South Africa apart. Long lines form across the country. People wait for hours. Old men. Young women. Children on their backs. For the first time ever, black people can vote. The country holds its breath. And the winner? Nelson Mandela. He stands tall. He says, "Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will experience the oppression of one by another." Cheers erupt. He is not just a president. He is a father of a nation. He sits behind a desk. Looks at old photos of Robben Island. He whispers, "It was worth it." But deep down, he knows the work has just begun. South Africa is free. But still hurting. Mandela spends his presidency healing wounds. Talking to enemies. Hugging victims. Building peace. He only stays one term. He could have ruled longer. But Mandela isn't hungry for power. He wants something bigger. Hope. Nelson Mandela was not perfect. But he turned pain into peace. Prison into purpose. Hate into healing. His story is not just South Africa's. It belongs to the world. If Mandela's journey moved you, from prisoner to president, share this story. Comment your thoughts. And subscribe to MysteryPlaybacksSeries for more stories that shook the world.